The aircraft touched down just after sunset. No flight plan, no official record, just a small turboprop rolling across a quiet runway in Santa Teresa. Engines humming like nothing extraordinary had happened. But inside, history was collapsing. One man stepped out first, calm, hands raised, already rehearsed for surrender. Behind him sat a legend who had evaded capture for decades. Ismael Zambada Garcia, known simply as El Mayo. He hadn't come willingly. Agents moved in. Cameras stayed off. The arrest was swift, silent, surgical. Within hours, rumors spread across Culiacan. Within weeks, gunfire followed. Within months, nearly 2,000 people would be dead. The war wasn't started by police. It wasn't started by rival cartels. It was started by betrayal, allegedly orchestrated by a son of the most infamous trafficker alive. And the man at the center of it was Joaquín Guzmán Lopez, the quiet Guzmán, the one nobody expected. But this moment was years in the making. Origins. An empire, built on partnership. Long before the plane, there was an alliance that reshaped global drug trafficking. Two names dominated Mexico's underworld, Joaquín Guzmán Loera and El Mayo. Together, they built the Sinaloa Cartel into a decentralized network that blurred the line between crime syndicate and shadow government. Unlike rigid cartels of the past, Sinaloa functioned like a federation. Independent cells operated semi-autonomously while sharing routes, protection, and logistics. Recruitment was constant. Young men entered as drivers, lookouts, or couriers. A loyalty was enforced through family ties and debt. Advancement depended on efficiency and silence. Money moved through construction firms, agriculture exports, casinos, and cross-border trade. Weapons flowed from U.S. gun markets back into Mexico. Territory was maintained through alliances with local gangs and intimidation of officials. For decades, the partnership worked. Then one man disappeared into a prison cell, and the balance shifted. Rise of the Sons. The new generation. When El Chapo was extradited to the United States in 2017, his sons inherited fragments of an empire. They became known collectively as Los Chapitos. But one brother stood apart. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez wasn't flashy. He wasn't the public face. Investigators described him as strategic, a planner focused on logistics rather than violence. Under this new generation, operations evolved. Synthetic drugs replaced traditional trafficking models. Fentanyl production required smaller supply chains but produced massive profits. Laboratories could operate in hidden rural properties while pills moved through existing smuggling routes. The organization became more profitable, but also more volatile. Because power was still shared with El Mayo, an old guard leader who controlled political relationships, money laundering pipelines, and distribution networks across the border. Two leadership styles, two generations, one fragile alliance, and tension was growing. Inside the organization, how power was maintained. The cartel's structure allowed resilience. Cells handled specific roles: manufacturing, transportation, enforcement, finance. If one was dismantled, others continued. Territory wasn't just geographic, it was economic. Ports, highways, border crossings, and urban distribution hubs were strategic assets. Control meant revenue. Weapon stockpiles rivaled paramilitary forces. Armored vehicles, military-grade rifles, encrypted communications. Intelligence networks tracked police movements in real time. Community influence played a crucial role. In some regions, cartel groups funded infrastructure, provided jobs, or mediated disputes. Support wasn't always ideological. Often it was survival. Political connections, alleged by investigators and journalists, created additional protection layers. Information leaks, delayed raids, altered reports. To outsiders, it looked unstoppable, but internally, distrust was spreading. And cooperation with U.S., For authorities, once unthinkable, was becoming a survival strategy. The turning point: cooperation becomes currency. The blueprint was simple. Arrest didn't mean the end. It meant negotiation. Several high-ranking figures associated with the cartel had previously received reduced sentences after providing intelligence. That pattern changed how leaders calculated risk. Freedom became transactional. When one Guzmán brother was captured, negotiations reportedly began almost immediately. Information about networks, suppliers, and rivals became leverage. What the public didn't know was that these negotiations allegedly extended beyond information. They could involve people, and in 2024, investigators believe that idea reached its most extreme form. Deliver someone bigger. Deliver El Mayo. The betrayal. A meeting that wasn't according to multiple reports and legal filings, El Mayo was invited to what he believed was a high-level meeting. The setting appeared legitimate. Familiar faces, trusted intermediaries, political context. But prosecutors later alleged it was a trap. El Mayo was restrained and transported to an airstrip. A plane waited. Registration details were questionable. No formal flight plan existed. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez was on board. Hours later, U.S. agents were already positioned at the destination. Whether authorities had prior knowledge remains disputed. Officials insist they did not participate in the kidnapping. Critics argue the timing raises questions. Either way, the outcome was undeniable. One of the most elusive traffickers in history was in custody, and Sinaloa exploded. A law enforcement response, shockwaves across borders. Mexican officials described the incident as a major security breach. Questions emerged about sovereignty, coordination, and political involvement. Investigations examined travel records, communications, and witness statements. Allegations surfaced about staged alibis and manipulated forensic reports in related events. Authorities deployed thousands of troops across affected regions as violence escalated. Shootings targeted businesses, rehabilitation centers, and suspected rival affiliates. Entire neighborhoods experienced shutdowns during firefights. What authorities discovered next shocked even veteran detectives. The conflict wasn't disrupting trafficking. Production continued. Routes stayed active. The war was about control, not stopping the business. The fall. Civil war. Inside Sinaloa. Two factions emerged. One aligned with Los Chapitos, the other loyal to El Mayo's remaining network, including his son Ismael Zambada Siqueiros. Violence became targeted but relentless. Assassinations, property seizures, shifting alliances with regional groups. Meanwhile, rival organizations expanded into contested territory, most notably the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. From a strategic perspective, the betrayal weakened Sinaloa more than any external operation had in years. Inside U.S. custody, cooperation reportedly intensified. Information exchanges involved supply chains, chemical sources, financial routes, and political corruption allegations. Sentencing decisions were delayed, dependent on the value of that cooperation. The men who triggered the war were now negotiating their futures from prison cells. The aftermath. Thousands dead. Business unchanged. By early 2025, estimates suggested nearly 2,000 deaths linked to the conflict. Hundreds disappeared. Economic damage reached into the billions. Schools closed during violence. Businesses relocated. Entire communities adapted to uncertainty. Yet fentanyl production continued. That contradiction revealed something fundamental about modern organized crime. Leadership changes rarely stop operations. Networks are designed to survive individuals. The Sinaloa Cartel did not collapse. It fragmented. Power shifted from centralized leadership to competing factions and opportunistic rivals. And the strategy of cooperation, once a last resort, became normalized. Betrayal became operational. Their legacy, the Last Guzmán. Today, multiple key figures remain in custody, fugitivity, or negotiation. El Chapo serves a life sentence in isolation. El Mayo faces the possibility of dying in prison after decades evading capture. Joaquín Guzmán Lopez continues cooperating, his future tied to information rather than loyalty. The war he allegedly triggered reshaped cartel dynamics across Mexico. But the most unsettling realization is this: the system didn't break, it adapted. Cartels evolved, law enforcement strategies evolved, negotiations became part of the battlefield. The line between justice, strategy, and leverage grew harder to define. And the lesson spreading through the underworld was clear: survival might depend not on power, but on who you're willing to give up. The Sinaloa conflict wasn't just about drugs. It was about succession, trust, and the price of freedom. An empire built on loyalty fractured because cooperation offered a way out. Nearly 2,000 lives later, the question remains: when betrayal becomes strategy, who actually wins? If stories like this reveal the hidden power structures shaping global crime, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Comment below. Do you think cooperation weakens cartels, or does it make them more dangerous? Because the next story might already be unfolding.